Here's something I hear a lot in my tutoring practice. My teacher hasn't taught us that yet. Usually I hear this when students come across a problem in their homework that looks unfamiliar. But usually they can solve that problem using what they have learned. Here's an example. So your child is in geometry and they've been learning about Pythagorean theorem. And most of the problems that they've seen look like this. They're given a right triangle with the right angle marked and two leg lengths. And they're asked to find the hypotenuse, and they can use a squared plus b squared equals c squared to solve this. But now they're given this problem. And they're told, find the length of the diagonal of this rectangle. Now, a lot of students will say, I don't know how to do this. The teacher hasn't taught us this yet. But the diagonal of a rectangle divides the rectangle into two right triangles. They've already learned that rectangles have four right angles, that opposite sides are congruent. And so here's a right triangle with the two legs marked, and the diagonal of the rectangle is the hypotenuse of that triangle. So they can use Pythagorean theorem to solve this as well. A lot of students have trouble with this, with applying learned skills to novel problems. And it's because they're relying on the surface features of the problem rather than the deep structure of the problem to figure out how to solve it. And this is something that can and should be taught explicitly, but that's a different conversation for a different time. But where are kids getting the idea that they shouldn't try and tackle a problem unless they've learned one that's almost identical? Like, I hear a lot, oh, we're not allowed to go ahead in our packet, or we're only supposed to do the circled problems, or my teacher crossed that one out, so we're not allowed to do it. I'm not suggesting that we give kids math problems that are over their heads. That wouldn't be good teaching. But when we tell kids, oh, you can't do this problem, don't go ahead to that section, you're sending them this message that certain parts of math are for them and other parts are off limits, that math is this thing that exists under the authority of adults, and that it can be dangerous. If you try this problem, you might get confused. And this contributes to math anxiety, which is a crisis. This would never happen with ELA. Think about how we teach kids to read. We give kids the tools they need to be able to read a book that they've never been introduced to. We teach them the sounds the letters make. We teach them some word parts and word endings. We teach comprehension strategies. We teach them to recognize sight words that come up a lot. And then they're off and they can read anything. You would never hear a kid say, I can't read that book because my teacher hasn't taught me how to read it yet. Yes, teachers ask kids to read books at home that are just right books, meaning they're on their independent reading level. But we also allow our kids to explore much harder texts. We read our first graders Harry Potter. We keep books in their rooms that they're too young for, but maybe one day they'll want to read, and in the meantime, they have free access to exploring them if they want. The same should be happening with math. We should be encouraging kids to be curious, to ask questions, to be independent, to explore, and to try out their new math skills on all different kinds of problems. This is how kids can develop a sense of agency, a sense of autonomy, and can become confident as learners.